Okay. Good afternoon, dear students.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you. So today's class is about general anesthetics. General anesthetics part 1. Let us just go through the salient features of the general anesthetics. What is the role in the surgical aspects? But part 2 will be held in the second class. So part 1, now we are going to study mainly about the inducing agents and some of the major general anesthetic agents. There are something called intravenous anesthetics. Intravenous anesthetics will be dealt in the second class along with anesthetic pre-medication. Now, first of all, what is general anesthetic? A general anesthetic is a drug which causes reversible loss of all sensations and consciousness. It causes reversible loss of all sensations and consciousness. The cardinal features of general anesthesia are loss of sensation, especially pain. There won't be any pain sensation. Sleep, induction of sleep, where that is unconsciousness and amnesia. Immobility and muscle relaxation. The person will be immobile and all the muscles will be relaxed. Abolition of somatic and autonomic reflexes. The reflexes will be abolished. So these are all the features of then we will say that the person is under the influence of general anesthesia. There should be loss of sensation. The person should be sleeping. There should be immobility and muscle relaxation, and reflexes should not be there. History. How did anesthesia develop as a specialty, or anesthetics came into the vogue of the pharmacology? Before mid-19th century, alcohol, opium, cannabis, concussion, asphyxia, they were used to reduce the surgical pain. You know what is concussion? A big bang on the head. Okay, they used to give a big bang, deliver a big bang on the head, and then the person used to be in a state of altered consciousness. Then they used to do the surgery. So these were all horrible ordeals. So they were met with a lot of adverse effects and pain and all. And of course, the anesthesia was incomplete. In 1844, Horace Wells, dentist, came up with an idea of using nitrous oxide as an anesthetic, but however, it was really not successful. In 1846, Morton demonstrated ether anesthesia. It became soon popular. Ether anesthesia became very soon popular. And in 1847, Simpson demonstrated chloroform in Britain. Despite toxic potential, it became popular. In 1935, first IV anesthetic thiopentone came into picture. So that was the turning point, because for the smooth and quick induction of the anesthesia, this drug was useful. New generation of anesthetics was started. Halothane and others came into picture from 1956. What is the mechanism of general anesthesia? How this general anesthesia brings about loss of sensations, motor abolition, and reflex abolition, loss of consciousness. How exactly it brings its general anesthesia brings about all these things? It is exactly not precisely known. However, Mayer and Overton, they came with a direct parallelism between lipid water partition coefficient. That means how quickly it can diffuse out from the lipid into the water content. So based on that, the general anesthetics and their potency came into picture. There is something called minimum alveolar concentration. The lowest concentration of the anesthetic in the pulmonary alveoli needed to produce immobility in response to painful stimuli, surgical incision, in 50% of individuals. That means, what is the minimum concentration that is required in the alveoli so as to produce immobility in response to painful stimuli in 50% of individuals? It's a valid measure of potency of inhalational general anesthetics. Minimum alveolar concentration decreases progressively as age advances. That means lesser amount of anesthetic is sufficient as the age advances. What are the different facets of anesthesia? And the different facets of anesthesia and their site of action is like this. Anesthetic causes unconsciousness. So this unconsciousness is because of its action at the thalamus and the reticular activating system, which is responsible for consciousness. So if there is unconsciousness, the anesthetic has occurred at the level of, has acted at the level of thalamus or reticular activating system. Amnesia, loss of memory. If this has occurred, then the anesthetic has acted upon cerebral cortex and hippocampus. Immobility, spinal cord. So what are the different mechanisms? The different anesthetic agents act through different mechanisms. That is the ligand-gated ion channels, the main targets. The potentiate GABA A receptor gated chloride channels. Most important, one second, I think you are hearing some background noise. So how exactly these general anesthetics act? You came to know the different functions. So different functions, different sites. And what is the molecular mechanism, how exactly they do act? They potentiate GABA A receptor gated ion channels. Actually, they act through most of the ligand gated channels. Okay, ion channels. So they potentiate GABA A receptor gated chloride channels. Most important, and many inhalational anesthetics such as barbiturates, benzodiazepines, and propofol act through these mechanisms. Each appear to bind to own binding site on GABA A other than GABA. So there are binding sites of the GABA on the GABA A receptor. They leave that and then they bind to their own receptors and they bring about enhanced chloride channel activity. Direct activation of chloride channels. Some inhaled anesthetics, barbiturates. Inhibition of neuronal cation channel gated by nicotinic cholinergic receptor. Some fluorinated anesthetics, that means isoflurane, sevoflurane, desflurane. So these are all fluorinated anesthetics, and barbiturates cause analgesia and amnesia. Inhibit NMDA type of glutamate receptor, nitrous oxide and ketamine. Activation of specific type of potassium channels, two-pole domain channels, inhibition of presynaptic transmitter release and postsynaptic activation. So anesthesia is a complex procedure involving pre-anesthetic assessment, administration of general anesthetic drugs, cardiorespiratory monitoring, analgesia, airway management, fluid management, and post-operative pain relief. So these are all the mechanisms that it acts. So complex procedure involving the pre-anesthetic assessment, administration of general anesthetic drugs, cardiorespiratory monitoring, analgesia, airway management, fluid management, and post-operative pain relief. So what is the classification? What are these drugs, the general anesthetic drugs? How are they classified? They are classified based on their chemical nature and action. Inhalation gas. Inhalation gas is nitrous oxide. Volatile liquid. Volatile liquid is ether, halothane, enflurane, isoflurane, desflurane, and sevoflurane. Intravenous. Fast-acting drugs. Thiopentone sodium, methohexytone sodium, propofol, etomidate. Slower acting drugs, benzodiazepines, diazepam, lorazepam, midazolam. Dissociative anesthesia, ketamine, opioid analgesia, fentanyl and remifentanil. So these are all the anesthetic drugs that are available. So you have to scribble and then note down these drugs. Route of administration, enteral, oral and rectal, parenteral, sublingual intranasal, intramuscular, and intravenous. What are the stages of anesthesia? Stages and signs. See, these stages are classically seen only in case of ether. And ether is one of the oldest general anesthetic agent. The newer general anesthetic agents which are used now in all sorts of surgeries, they produce quick and faster anesthesia where these kind of stages are not classically seen. However, these classical stages of anesthesia helps us to understand how the general anesthetics act. Okay, that is why these stages are still studied. So the traditional description of signs and stages of general anesthesia, also called Guidel's sign, 1920, Guidel's sign. So higher to lower areas of the brain are depressed. Brain higher centers like cortex, thalamus, they are depressed, and later on lower centers like medullary centers are depressed. Ascending depression of the spinal cord, that means lower limb paralysis occurs first and then followed by upper limb. Ascending depression of the spinal cord. Vital centers located in medulla are paralyzed last. Uncommon, now with rapidly acting agents and with pre-anesthetic medication. So this kind of classification is very uncommon now with the rapidly acting agents and with pre-anesthetic medication. Stage of analgesia. This stage starts from beginning of anesthetic inhalation and lasts up to the loss of consciousness. So from the beginning of anesthetic up to lasting of the loss of consciousness. Pain is progressively abolished. Patient remains conscious, can hear and see, and feels a dream-like state. Reflexes and respiration remain normal. It is difficult to maintain. Use is limited to short procedures only. Okay, so that is stage one. Stage one starts from the beginning of anesthetic and lasts up to loss of consciousness. Now stage two, from loss of consciousness to beginning of regular breathing. Eyelash reflex disappear. Excitement. Patient may shout, struggle, and hold his breath. Muscle tone increases. Jaws are tightly closed. Breathing is jerky. Vomiting. Involuntary micturition or defecation may occur. No stimulus or operative procedure should be carried out during this stage. Potentially dangerous responses can occur during this stage, including vomiting, laryngospasm, and uncontrolled movement. This stage is not found with modern anesthesia. Pre-anesthetic medication and rapid induction, they will mask this kind of stages. Okay, so this staging is not typically seen with modern anesthesias. It's only seen with ether. Stage 3, also ether only, extends from the onset of regular respiration to respiratory paralysis. And this phase has been divided into 4 planes. Plane 1, there will be rowing of the eyeballs, and this plane ends when eyes become fixed. Plane 2, loss of corneal and laryngeal reflexes. Plane 3, pupil starts dilating and light reflex is lost. This is the desired phase of surgery when muscle relaxants were not used. So the pupils should start dilating and the light reflex should be lost. Then it is considered as phase of complete muscle relaxation. So earlier, when muscle relaxants were not used, this phase was considered as sufficient depth of anesthesia. Dilated pupils and right reflex not present. Intercostal paralysis, shallow abdominal respiration, and dilated pupil. Stage 4, a medullary paralysis or respiratory failure, cessation of breathing, failure of circulation. The pupils are widely dilated, muscles are totally flabby, pulse is imperceptible, and BP is very low. So this is the features of stage 4 Guidal's anesthesia. So a summary has been put here. This is from Tripathi. So in stage 1 analgesia occurs. Respiration will still be normal. Both abdominal and thoracic are occurring. Ocular movements will be normal. Pupil size will be normal. There are eyelid reflex, pharyngeal reflex, corneal reflex, light reflex. All the reflexes are still present. Involuntary movement may be there. Blood pressure is normal. Heart rate is normal. Okay. And in stage 2 delirium, respiratory movements alter. They start altering, and then roving of the eyeballs start occurring, and pupillary size starts dilating. Eyelid reflex will not be there, and pharyngeal reflex, corneal light reflex will be there. Surgical anesthesia stage 3 is divided into 4 planes. So you can see that as the planes progress, the respiratory efforts also cease to occur, and finally respiratory paralysis occurs in the stage 4. Pupils start dilating, and then finally pupils completely dilate in the phase 4. So at different planes, a lot of these reflexes are lost, and there will be involuntary movement. The BP will be raised, and the heart rate also increases. So this is the classical stages of anesthesia, but this is seen, mind you, only with ether, not with other anesthetics. So signs of anesthesia, modern agents, many of the above indices, they are obscured with the modern fast-acting anesthetics, pre-medication and muscle relaxant. So you are giving even pre-medication and muscle relaxation. With all that, this kind of classical staging as kind of a clinical signs are not seen. Stage 2, not yet reached. If eyelash reflex is present, patient making swallowing movements. Stage 3, reached if loss of response to painful stimuli, such as pressure on upper nasal border of the nose of the orbit. If they are present, then the stage 3 is not yet reached. Anesthesia is light if incision of the skin causes reflex increase in respiration and blood pressure. Insertion of endotracheal tube is resisted, induces cough, vomiting, laryngospasm, and tears. Resistance to passive inflation of the lungs. Signs of deep anesthesia, fall in blood pressure, cardiac and respiratory depression. Depth of anesthesia. In the present day practice, anesthesia is generally kept light because you have other muscle relaxation and analgesia which help the surgical procedure. Adequate analgesia, amnesia, and muscle relaxation are produced by IV drugs. They will help us to keep the anesthetics at a lower concentration. Again, I repeat, minimum alveolar concentration is the lowest concentration of the anesthetic in the pulmonary alveoli needed to produce immobility in response to a painful stimulus in 50% of the individuals. It's a valid measure of potency of inhalational gas. second gas effect. There is something called second gas effect which occurs with nitrous oxide. In the initial part of the induction, this second gas effect is a favored short note question in all your exams. What is second gas effect? So you need to write in the initial part of induction of anesthesia, diffusion gradient from alveoli to blood is high, and therefore large quantity of anesthetic is entering the blood. Substantial loss of alveolar gas volume occurs. That means whatever is the normal air which is present in the alveoli, that loss occurs because nitrous oxide is replacing that. This is significant only with the nitrous oxide as it is given at 70 to 80% concentration. Rest of the anesthetics are given at only 2% to 3% concentrations, but nitrous oxide is given at a concentration of 70 to 80%. At a very high concentration, nitrous oxide is given. So this is significant only with nitrous oxide, 70 to 80% concentration. If another potent anesthetic, example halothane, is given at the same time, it will also be delivered to the blood at the rate of 1 liter per minute higher than minute volume. So that means the second volume, the second gas when you inject, first of all, when you inject when you give a drug, nitrous like nitrous oxide at high concentration, that will wash off all the alveolar gas and it will occupy itself in the alveoli. And there will be a lot of diffusion gradient towards the blood. Now, on top of it, if you give another drug, another anesthetic such as halothane, that halothane will be quickly delivered into the blood because alveolar gas 70 to 80% occupied is nitrous oxide. So it quickly moves inside and then it will quickly be spread to the blood. So that second gas effect is this one. So nitrous oxide 70 to 80%, alveolar gas volume is washed out, and then there is a high diffusion gradient from alveoli to the blood. On top of all this, if you give a second drug, the second drug diffuses faster into the blood. That is second gas effect. Diffusion hypoxia. Reverse occurs when nitrous oxide is discontinued. Say, for example, nitrous oxide is administered at 70 to 80%, and it is being given all of you do type your names and roll numbers in the chat window for attendance. Okay, so if we get cut off after 40 minutes, we are going to re-log in again because the topic is little lengthy, and then we'll have to complete the topic today. Okay, so reverse occurs when nitrous oxide. So we are now talking, so that was second effect. Now diffusion hypoxia. Diffusion hypoxia means, say, when nitrous oxide is administered for half an hour or 45 minutes or 1 hour, and then they decide to withdraw the anesthesia, they stop further infusion of nitrous oxide and wait for the nitrous oxide to be expelled out of the lungs. So when they are waiting for the nitrous oxide to be expelled out of the lungs, a kind of reverse flow occurs. That means the nitrous oxide which is present within the blood, it will be back diffused into the alveoli. So that back diffusion causes hypoxia because there is no place for the oxygen in the alveoli. So nitrous oxide fills the entire alveoli and there is no oxygen. Therefore, it results in a kind of hypoxia. Partial pressure of oxygen falls, resulting hypoxia. Diffusion hypoxia occurs. Generally not of much consequence in cardiopulmonary reserve, is normal. If the cardiopulmonary reserve is normal, there is not much consequence, but can be dangerous if it is low. It is prevented by continuing 100% oxygen inhalation for few minutes after discontinuing nitrous oxide. Okay, so after discontinuing the nitrous oxide, Give 100% oxygen inhalation for some time. By that way, you can reduce the diffusion hypoxia. Again, I repeat, only 22 people have put their names and roll numbers in the chat window. So there are 49 of you here. Please type your names and roll numbers for attendance. Type your names and roll numbers for attendance in the chat window. Okay. Pharmacokinetics of inhalational anesthetics. So how this inhalational anesthetics act? One, they diffuse rapidly across the pulmonary alveoli. So whenever you give them the inhalational anesthetics, they pass through the respiratory tracts, nose, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, alveoli, and then across the alveoli. So they diffuse rapidly across the pulmonary alveoli. Depth of anesthesia depends on minimum alveolar concentration and its partial pressure in the brain. Okay. So what is the depth of anesthesia? It depends on minimum alveolar concentration and its partial pressure in the brain. Transfer of anesthetic between lung and brain. It depends on a series of tension gradients. Partial pressure of anesthetic in the inspired gas. If the partial pressure of the anesthetic is more in the inspired gas, more amount of the gas traverses the system. Pulmonary ventilation. If the pulmonary ventilation is adequate, then the anesthetic traverses the blood faster. Alveolar exchange. If the alveolar exchange is proper, that means if there are no lung diseases which interfere in the alveolar exchange of the gases, then also there is sufficient passage of the anesthetic into the system. Solubility of anesthetic in the blood. Drugs with low solubility, they induce quick, because if they are more soluble, they remain in the tissues. Low solubility, they keep moving across the vasculature, and then they induce the anesthesia faster. So drugs with low solubility, such as nitrous oxide, sevoflurane, desflurane, they induce the faster anesthetic activity. Individual inhalational anesthetic agents. Now let us study the pharmacology of some of the individual anesthetic agents. Diethyl ether. It is colorless, highly volatile liquid with a pungent odor, boiling point of 35 degrees centigrade. It produces irritating vapors which are inflammable and explosive. Okay, so ether is inflammable and explosive, diethyl ether. So diethyl ether is inflammable and explosive. 85 to 90% is eliminated through lung and remainder through skin, urine, milk, and sweat. It can cross the placental barrier. Advantages of the diethyl ether. It can be used without a complicated apparatus. Potent anesthetic and good analgesic. Muscle relaxation. Respiratory stimulation and bronchodilation occurs. Does not sensitize the heart to adrenaline. No cardiac arrhythmias. Can be used in delivery. Less likely hepato and nephrotoxicity. These are all the advantages of ether. Disadvantages is inflammable and explosive. Slow induction and unpleasant. Atropine is needed. Slow recovery, nausea and vomiting can occur. Cardiac arrest can occur. Convulsions in children can occur. Cross tolerance and ethyl alcohol, cross tolerance with ethyl alcohol is seen. Nitrous oxide or laughing gas. It is colorless, odorless, inorganic gas with sweet taste, non-inflammable and non-irritating, but of low potency. Very potent analgesic. carrier and adjuvant to other anesthetics, 70% of the nitrous oxide, 25 to 30% of oxygen, and 0.2 to 2% of another potent anesthetic such as halothane or something. This is the classical way of using nitrous oxide. A single agent used with oxygen in dental extraction and in obstetrics. Okay, so as a single agent, it can be used in dental extraction and obstetrics. However, it produces a depth. The depth is very light, but the muscle relaxation is good. Nitrous oxide is non-inflammable and non-irritant. Compare this with ether. Ether is irritant and inflammable. Okay, so ether is inflammable, explosive. Nitrous oxide is non-inflammable and non-irritant. Rapid induction and recovery can occur. Very potent analgesic, low concentration, no nausea and vomiting, non-toxic to liver, kidney, and brain. Disadvantages: alone, it is not potent. Hypoxia can occur, inhibits methionine synthetase, inhibits vitamin B12 metabolism. Dentists or personnel abusers at risk. Gas-filled spaces are dangerous. Halothane or fluthane, fluorinated volatile liquid with sweet odor, non-irritant, non-inflammable, and supplied in amber-colored bottle. Potent anesthetic, 2 to 4% for induction and 0.5 to 1% for maintenance. Boiling point is 50 degrees centigrade. Pharmacokinetics, 60 to 80% eliminated unchanged. 20% retained in body for 24 hours and metabolized. Halothane advantages: it is non-inflammable, non-irritant, something like nitrous oxide. It is non-inflammable, non-irritant. Pharyngeal and laryngeal reflexes, bronchodilation, they remain intact. Potent and speedy induction and recovery can occur with halothane. Controlled hypotension occurs, inhibits intestinal and uterine contractions. A lot of disadvantages are also there with halothane. Special apparatus is required to induce halothane anesthesia, poor analgesic and muscle relaxation, hypotension and direct action, calcium and failure of sympathetic activity, arrhythmia, direct vagal stimulation, direct depression of sinoatrial node, and lack of baroreceptor action. So it causes a heart depressant action. Also, it causes a CNS depressant kind of an action. Both heart and CNS are depressed. Respiratory depression, decreased urine formation due to decreased GFR, hepatitis 1 in 10,000, malignant hyperthermia. There is something called ranodine receptor. So that ranodine receptor, if it is abnormal, so this causes excessive calcium release, and excessive calcium release causes